How y'all doing today? I hope you're doing well. I'm doing pretty well. I got my work done. Customer's very, very happy with me. I'm very, very happy for the customer. Should have been a pretty easy job, in and out in a couple of days. Took a way bit longer, mainly because the integrator is this Italian company that was supposed to do the mechanical work. And they didn't know their asses from whatever they call in Italy the elbow. But kind of when I showed up to do the final electrical tuning and stuff, unfortunately we had to redo a good amount of the mechanical work. But thankfully I caught it before we actually started rotating equipment. End user wasn't happy about all of this, but it's not one of those situations where they're not unhappy. Once you explain to them why the way they did what they did would have cost them way more delays and cost them way more money, and then once I got things fixed up right and we actually made serious progress, after that, the situation goes from Smith, you're causing me a lot of problems to, so Smith, how much does this foreign company pay you? How would you like to live here in Northeast Texas? And be like, thank you, but no thank you. So I've been since I'm stuck in my hotel room, can't talk to my wife. She's at work. Can't talk to my boy. He's at school. So I'm kind of bored in my hotel room, enjoying a celebratory pure sugar cane Pepsi. I always love them. That's my one major vice anymore. Gave up the drinking, gave up the smoking, gave up the loose women and the gambling. My one weakness is a good old fashioned sugar cane Pepsi. And so I'm enjoying that. I deserve it. But I figured I'd make a quickie little video for y'all because I got the time to do it. Now, I have seen a lot on social media. It appears that, Mrs. Jackie Singh has gotten herself into quite the humdinger. It was kind of interesting when that tour SWAT kid got arrested, and I hope they throw that fucking book at him. I hope that boy sings. I hope they find out exactly who paid who, when they paid it, and I hope they're able to file cases against every single one of them mother frickers. Try not to swear, but the people that do this kind of stuff, they deserve the full punishment allowed under the law. No ifs, ands, or buts. It's gotten men killed, it's gotten women killed, it's gotten kids killed, it's gotten pets killed. It's a form of terrorism, and I really, really hope that kid sings. I hope he sings, and I hope he lets them know exactly who to go after next. But it's interesting to me because it appears that Jackie tried to double down on her claim of was it Swedish? Doesn't matter where he's from. He's from Europe. What matters is he's an innocent man who is wrongfully accused. Jackie was called out almost immediately as people saying, like, the what you're basing this on is insane. You're basing it on a screen name from a Lord of the Rings. It's like, what is wrong with you? And she went after him and his family and all. And what I've noticed on the old Twitter is it sounds like this gentleman has the receipts. And it sounds like, and it definitely looks like, something that I told someone on social media. I'm not going to bother looking at my tweet. But there was this individual talking about Jackie, and I said I would not be surprised if Jackie made her own her own Telegram account to make it sound like Tor Swats was talking to her. And I'm like, if she did that, she is dumber than I ever thought possible. And the individual fired back and said, I wouldn't go that far. I'd be really surprised if somebody's trained in IT and, OPSEC or whatever would ever be dumb enough to do that. And I replied back, one, I see no evidence that Jackie's ever actually been trained and paid to be an IT informational security person. And I didn't expound on that any further, but I firmly believe that. I don't believe she's gotten any kind of training or anything. She has done what a lot of military vets do, which is rather than do the hard work of actually going to school, reinventing themselves, and so on, you bedazzle people with bullshit. And this is a real problem in the engineering world and in the tech world. It's a real freaking problem. If you can sound really confident, you'll be amazed how badly you can burn people and burn companies. And she has a whole list of companies that she supposedly worked for. But a lot of these companies, if you look into them, they never really did nothing. It's almost like they were just paper. And I said, and two, what I said to the second part of my tweet to the guy was, just because somebody's trained in something doesn't mean that they're stupid. I was like, some of the stupidest people I've ever worked with and known had bachelor's and master's degree in engineering disciplines. And that's the truth. So it looks like she was messing around in a way that I never thought she'd be stupid enough to do it, and she has most definitely put herself onto the FBI's radar. I am certain of it, because they're going to go through it like a fine-tooth comb with anybody, and everybody that's remotely related to this knucklehead kid. Everybody. And the fact that she created like a second account, at least that's what it looks like, I think that's not a good look for her with any number of three-letter agencies, which is why I think she clapped back at Patrick saying, like, stop responding. Because Patrick was telling somebody that your life is over, stalker child, enjoy prison, to somebody that was responding to Jackie. And, of course, the FBI was tagged. Because that's one of the dumb things that Patrick does is he will tweet his threat without even looking to see who is attached to it. Because he's dumb. Patrick, for a guy that spends 14 to 18 hours a day of his life on social media, still has not figured out how to untag somebody in a tweet. Golly, that sugar cane is good. The only better than a Pepsi made out of sugar cane. If you ever get a chance, if you go to the Middle East, parts of the Middle East, or if you go to India, sugar cane juice. They make it straight out of the cane. They just squeeze it. I remember a guy I was working with. He's like, "Oh, this is very good. This is very good, Mr. Smith." And I'm thinking it's going to come out like a molasses. Like, I don't know. Oh my goodness, it's not super sweet at all. It's way less sweet than you realize. Sugar cane juice. If you can get it fresh, it's amazing. The food in India was fantastic across the board. You know, that's the other thing I always struggle to wrap my mind around. Jackie's last name is Singh. She has to be the only person that I've ever run into with the last name Singh that I could not get along with and I didn't respect. It's like, usually you're talking about Sikhs, and I've always gotten along with Sikhs. They're the only people that are close to my height. I've never seen a short Sikh gentleman, or even a short Sikh woman. And her food's really good and stuff. The Gold Temple in Punjab is it's an amazing place. It's an amazing place. So anywho, rather than talk about Jackie, because I don't really have nothing to add, I'm waiting for the fireworks. I figured I'd talk about good old Jim Stewartson and all. I like Jim Stewartson. Actually, real quick, let me show you something. Whenever Patrick has to look up one of my tweets, he's got to do what I have to do when I want to look up Jim's stuff. I have Jim blocked. And the reason why I have Jim blocked is because his sycophant, who's part of his podcast, Hi-Fi, kept spamming death threats to me and stuff. And Hi-Fi and Jim joined the list of accounts that is consisting of gore and porn bots and those two. And like Hi-Fi is really annoying because I've gotten to the point now where I kind of just ignore him and I stay away from him. But like this dude just loves to spam out death threats and shit nonstop, just nonstop. And what is funny to me is every like 24 hours his account gets deleted because he must have like 85 freaking cell phones, which really makes me feel glad that my tax money is pumping out welfare to this jackass, because there's no way this guy actually still has a job anymore. So he's like the attack dog for Jim Stewartson. So if I want to see whatever Jim's doing, and I don't actually really bother to look at what Jim's doing, because it's all just unhinged boomer conspiracy theory crap. But like if I want to look at Jim's tweets, I have to search for Jim's account, find the right account, click on the account, then I have to click on view posts since I have him blocked. And then if I was Patrick and I was doing it to me, Mr. Smith's account, I would have to scroll through here until I eventually find a tweet or a reply that has anything to do with me. And that's what Pat does to me on a daily basis. So when you see like the absurd number of tweets that Pat has, and you think, wow, well, if he spent like 2 minutes per tweet, that's like 8 hours a day. No, it takes more effort than that. He literally has to do just this. That's the whole reason why I'm showing Jim's account, because it's the only account that I can think of that that I have blocked, and the other accounts I don't want to do because it will just be like porn and stuff, and I'm obviously not going to show that on Twitter. Sorry, on Facebook. But these guys are just fascinating to me. This whole Jim Stewartson, Heidi, and Hi-Fi, because they run this podcast and they're just blatant grifters, and they're targeting people that used to be Trump supporters, and now it's no longer or socially acceptable to be Trump supporters. So now they're ardent Biden supporters. So like, what's funny to me is, as a military vet that did a lot of time in Afghanistan, and I got blown up in Afghanistan. Like, I don't think I'm surprising anyone when I say that I'm anti-war. I'm pretty much vehemently anti-war. I believe it should be something that's done at the very, very last case. And this has to be something where the sovereignty of our own nation is at risk. Anything short of that, I don't believe the United States should actively be participating in a war. Mainly because I saw all the waste, the damage the Afghan war did on people, and we could see the damage that like the Iraq war in occupation has had, and how we've destabilized that entire region and so on. What is so unnerving to me is that people that I would share my opinions with under Trump would be like, "You're so brave. Yeah, you're right. Totally agree with you." These same people now will call me a coward, a piece of shit. I don't know what I'm talking about. Hoorah, we need to bomb the shit out of these goat fuckers in Yemen. And it's like, you guys don't even know where Yemen is. Like, you want us to get involved in the Vietnam of war of the Arabian Peninsula? Do you realize how many countries currently have troops and shit there? It's not easy to like hit these targets and not accidentally hit the wrong thing, let alone worrying about civilians and shit. And like, these are people that like used like they LARP that they were anti-war under Trump, but now that it's Biden, no, we gotta wipe them out. And the opposite is true for the other side, where it's like, you mess with the U.S., you mess with the bull, you get the horns. And now it's like, oh wait, Biden's in church. Oh wait, no, nope. Now I care about all lives matter kind of thing. It's like, come on, like, I'm amazed at people that can just flip a switch in their brains and can completely reinvent their morality in real time. Just justify anything, and it's primarily like people like this Jim guy who's doing it just for money purposes and stuff. But if you ever get a chance, I highly recommend just checking out a little bit of their podcast. It's always so funny to me because like Jim and company are, oh God, their entries.
Breaker in the last 24, 48 hours that pertains to your work.
All three of these people look like individuals that would ask me for money at a bus stop. It's like, this is the best you can do for your podcast. Like, granted, I'm not looking for suits and ties and folks, but like, at least Heidi is dressed up somewhat. But like, Jim legitimately looks like he would try to sell me a stereo at a gas station, and then by the time I get done paying for my gas and coming back out, he's already trying to steal my catalytic converter. This is Hi-Fi. This is the guy that has threatened to murder me I don't know how many times. And he's morbidly obese. He chain smokes. He drinks throughout the entire podcast from what looks like a jar of piss. And it's very hard to take him seriously when he says that he's going to kick my ass, because it looks like a flight of stairs would kick his ass kind of thing. I think he's out of Ohio, and I think he used to be like a computer store guy, something along those lines. So naturally he views himself as like a quasi-Neo from the Matrix, on top of this, he's like this social engineering expert that could explain these complex online social parasitic relationships, and I could go inside there and I could destabilize it from the inside. It's like, dude, you're an unemployed boomer whose entire family has moved away from you because you're so antisocial and just miserable to be around. You don't know how to social engineer your own damn family. Just shut up. They never let him talk for the longest time, so he just sits there and chain smokes weed until eventually they'll let him talk. And by the time he's done rambling, Jim has already basically zoned out and passed out.
And can you just inform our friends who might not be on the tweeters and might not know
The tweeters.
that, made some news last few days?
Yeah, I mean, I always try and keep these things as even keeled as possible.
Like, I'm sorry, but if you know anything about this guy, he he's getting sued by Michael Flynn because he basically says that Michael Flynn is a neo-Nazi, tried to take over the United States, and that I think it's like he kidnapped and tortured American citizens at Gitmo. So like this knucklehead on the left has to try to prove in court because I think the court has already said we're not going with the whole hubris over the top argument. No, you've said this repeatedly, and there's video of you saying that you weren't lying, you weren't blowing it up, you firmly believe this, and that he actually did this. Da 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 da. So you got to prove this in a civil case that he did this, and he'll do these shows where he's like, no. Michael Flynn has to prove that he's not a neo-Nazi. He's like, that's not how this works, dumbass. You have to prove it because you're the one that made actionable, slanderous content, and you've been sued. So you have to mount the defense, not the guy that's suing you.
As God knows, there's all sorts of ups and downs.
Mm-hmm.
So Flynn, after he sued me for 14 statements, which we'll talk about in a minute.
Pro tip, I am not a lawyer. I am not a lawyer. I am not a lawyer. But there are certain things that any lawyer will tell you. And any kind of person that has ever been involved with a lawsuit or anything will also tell you. Never, ever, not to your friends, not to your family, and certainly not on a motherfucking podcast, talk about an active civil or criminal case against you or somebody you know. Don't talk about it. Don't talk about it. Don't talk about it. I guarantee you, Michael Flynn's lawyers have an intern that has to sit there and watch this entire stupid podcast and then type it in to a Word document, every single word spoken, so that they can highlight this stuff and then submit it as part of their legal arguments. Don't ever, ever, ever talk about a civil case. I wouldn't recommend talking about it until even after it's done. I cannot imagine how frustrating it is to be Jim Stewartson's lawyer. Now, granted, they're making a lot of money off them, so I think that kind of takes a sting off there. But there has to be times where they get served with new paperwork, and they're contacting Jim going, "What the frick are you doing? Stop talking, dumbass." So of course, if you really want to follow this case, just know that Jim's lying about everything that he's saying, but he talks about this case.
Decided to sue Rick Wilson because Rick Wilson retweeted me.
Correct.
Literally, that was the reason. I said, "Hey, good job on Nicole Wallace" or something like that. He retweeted me, and apparently it pierced the thin skin of the worst traitor in American history so badly that he upped the amount from 75,000 to 10 million all of a sudden because of Rick Wilson's retweet. And anyway, so Rick's lawyers and my lawyer.
I'm sorry. I'm gonna have to speed this up. He talks so slow drunk.
Have been fighting this case effectively on the same side, and Rick Wilson had a crushing, devastating victory. All of his case was thrown out, and the judge had a nice little note at the end that said, "I'm ready if you want to get some legal fees over here. I'm just saying."
Now, what he's actually talking about is, so Flynn served papers on this other guy who actually has more money than Jim, which is probably why they tried to ask for more money. And the court basically said, like, yes, you want to be separated from this case. We're going to separate you from this case. Furthermore, you want this case thrown out. We're throwing out the case. Jim and fans are somehow taking this as like a huge win for Jim, indicating that the judge is going to throw out the case with Michael Flynn versus Jim Stewartson. And everything that I've read about this case, Jim looks like he's pretty screwed. Looks like he's the judge appears like, because the judge has already said, like, I'm not hearing the argument saying that, like, no reasonable person would not take this at face value, kind of thing. Like, Jim's own lawyers had to put in writing that Jim's audience are morons, and that only a moron would believe what Jim said. Because one of the arguments is, from Flynn's lawyer, I believe, is it's like, you can't say that people didn't believe what he said because this asshole's been raising money to the tune of like $150,000 selling the fact that, like, Michael Flynn is apparently a neo-Nazi who tried to take over the U.S. and has tortured and murdered Americans, kind of thing. So this is where Jim is really, really kind of screwed, because he's made money off of slandering Michael Flynn. It's like it's getting established in court that he's made money doing this. So, like, this is a whole fascinating thing for me, because I'm not a lawyer. I know I'm not a lawyer, and I'm probably not understanding a lot of this stuff. But, like, it is really interesting to see a guy who's, like, just such a massive asshole to people just repeatedly get kicked in the balls, and he's in such denial about things that he just keeps escaping further and further into drug and alcoholism. I will say this: I'm an alcoholic. And the big way where, like, High Five really went after me was, I was concerned about Jim's health the very first time I saw one of these podcasts. And I watched it for like 2 minutes. And right in the chat, I typed in there, like, hey, is this guy okay? He looks like he took something. Like, is he okay? Because, like, Jim was really bad that podcast. Like, and he had drool dribbling down his face. And I got timed out, and the hi-fi guy insulted me. Well, then after the timeout, I replied, I put another message like, no, I'm not trying to troll or nothing. Is this guy okay? And that got me blocked, which is why I don't think I'm ever going to comment. And frankly, if he doesn't want my help or anybody's help, there's nothing you can really do. But legitimately, in the first 5 minutes I've ever seen any Jim's content, if I knew where Jim's house was, if I knew that address for certain, I would have called his local police department or his emergency line and do a welfare check. Because it legitimately looked like Jim had overdosed on something and he did not realize it. And then, like, the other two people were just talking, joking around, and I'm like, what the frick is wrong with this? There's something got to be wrong with this guy. Like, no one. And it turns out, like, no, that's how he is. That's his Tuesday, to get utterly obliterated or whatever, and then do a podcast. This basically is the politics version of Use Me Only Blake. That is really what this podcast is. This guy gets drunk and screwed up on drugs and alcohol as much as possible. This guy sits there smoking weed, getting messed up on drugs. I'm not sure what's in that jar piss. Maybe it's just piss. Whatever it is, he gets messed up. And then Heidi, I get the vibe that she's more of a Xanax red wine kind of lady.
So that was fantastic. It's great news all around. And what a fucking face dunk for Flynn. Flynn is going to appeal because all this is about is fucking lawfare. All it's about is trying to drain people's wallets. And the motherfucker's been raising money hand over fist for a long time now. And so, he's got lots and lots of resources to play this game. So in no way is any of this over, even Rick's case. But come on, man, like, you can't sue somebody for retweeting somebody. It's fucking stupid. Period. And
Yeah.
The funny thing, if you'll notice, Hi-Fi is always muted. They have to keep him muted because he smokes so much that I'm fairly certain that he's in early onset of serious complications from emphysema. So remember that if you ever run into this knucklehead. Now, granted, this Twitter account, give it less than 24 hours. This will be blocked. Or not blocked, I'm sorry. This will be banned. It's going to be banned because Hi-Fi cannot go longer than 35, 40 hours without threatening to rape someone or murder someone over the most mundane, stupid things. I don't report his tweets. I don't have to because normal people be like, why'd you just tell that 18-year-old you're going to rape her with a chainsaw? That's not right. And then he gets blocked, and then he gets onto his podcast and complains about it. And then he's like, but I got 35 more phones. And it's like, got some great priorities there, buddy. But they have to mute him this whole time because otherwise he's just hacking up along or whatever.
Anyway, so in my particular case, I had 14 things, and a whole bunch of them, actually the most important ones to me, the judge was like, oh, there's a prima facie showing that this is a legitimate thing to discuss in public square. And those include Mike Flynn is a literal traitor. Mike Flynn uses ISIS radicalization techniques. Mike Flynn committed treason. Mike Flynn helped to plan and execute.
He wants
January
to talk.
5th. Mike Flynn
You're gonna
is
keep
running
ignoring
QAnon.
him.
Mike Flynn works for Putin.
The thing is, you don't get to talk before Dear Leader gets finished. There's a hierarchy here. Also, what he's talking about, like what the judge is saying, the judge is like what Jim is, the way Jim is describing this, he's making it sound like the judge is like, yeah, you guys can argue this in court because there's merit to Michael Flynn, this being true about Michael Flynn. And that's not really what the judge is saying. The judge is saying, no, these are actionable, instances of libel or slander. I always confuse the two. One of them is written, one of them is spoken. So in this case, it would be the written one. So that's slander, I think. Crucify me in a chat if I'm wrong. So basically, what the judge has to say is, this is a slanderous. This could be a slanderous thing. This could be a slanderous thing. This could be a slanderous thing. Other things are not. I'm not going to cover that, or we're not going to discuss that. And what Jim is trying to sell to his audience is, yeah, the judge says we can hash this out because there might be there's evidence of this. It's like, no, Jim, this is what you have to prove. Otherwise, you're going to lose this lawsuit. So you're going to have to prove that Michael Flynn is a neo-Nazi, that he murders Americans, that he mind wipes people, he eats babies, and all the other ridiculous shit you say. Like, that's not a good thing that the judge is saying that we're going to hash this out and see what is true and what isn't true. Because you're kind of boned here. And again, it's Jim that has to mount the defense. Like, Michael Flynn doesn't have to prove I'm not a neo-Nazi. Jim has to the burden of proof is on Jim. But the way he describes it to his idiot audience to keep trying to give, and that's the other thing too, is like he's making it sound like Michael Flynn has no case, but then he's like, you got to make sure you give me that money though, because Michael Flynn, he's trying to use lawsuits to like silence us real true Americans, not these these Nazi supporters and stuff. And again, I want to really drive home the point here. Jim, Heidi, Hi-Fi, and a lot of the people like them, whether they're on the left side or the right side, because they're still conservatives, or just like these three knuckleheads, would gladly strip you and I of our basic civil liberties if we had an opinion that they didn't like. This is the thing that has really bothered me in the last 10 years in American society. It has become socially acceptable to advocate that people shouldn't have freedom of speech, freedom of protest, and so on. Where we got Nancy Pelosi. I really want somebody out there who is a true blue, die-in-the-wood, lifelong Democrat supporter to explain to me why Nancy Pelosi saying that Code Pink people should all be investigated by the FBI because they're probably Russian assets. Why you aren't upset about that. This is the same shit that Nixon did during the Vietnam War. And that's the thing that really pisses me off about these knuckleheads. If you talk to them about Vietnam, they'll say, "Oh, so the government was extreme, and the anti-war protesters, they were slandered, and they fought against an unjust war." What the frick is going on now then? Because it's the same thing, but now, oh wait, whoa, we got a Democrat in charge. Now's war is good. Now sicking the FBI on dissidents and sicking the FBI on anti-war people like myself. Oh, that's a good thing to do. That's a good thing to do. You don't deserve the right to have basic civil liberties. Why? Orange man bad. It's like, and they don't seem to realize that Trump supporters do the same fucking thing. Like, I don't understand this. What has happened to people? Are we still putting lead in the paint? Or are we still putting lead in gasoline? Are we still putting lead in the water? Like, how are people this stupid? You take rights away from one group of people you don't like. They don't stop with the people you don't like. It moves on. It moves on. And it moves on. Do I like racist, hateful stuff on the internet? No. That's why I make sure I monitor what my son is exposed to. It's my right and responsibility as a parent. But that doesn't mean I want everyone stripped of that right. Because once you give it to the government, you'll never get it back. Well, it's a slippery slope argument. And it's a damn good argument. I don't know if I'm loud, by the way. I apologize. When I record, I might be screaming for all I know. So if the audio is all screwed up, I'm really, really sorry. Worst thing is worse. The video that I'm playing, it might be dead quiet. I don't even realize it. I am able to hear Jim because if I wasn't able to hear, I cannot read Jim's lips to save my life. One, his internet is crap. But two, I've always struggled to read lips of people that are slurring their speech. Crap. My phone is buzzing. I'll be right back. Sorry about that. That was really nice. One of the guys from the facility was actually down at the front lobby. He asked me to come down. He gave me a nice collared shirt and a baseball cap for the site. That was really nice of him. Didn't have to do that. I'm not sure exactly where I was. I apologize. One of the things I do want to say, I don't want to make it sound like I'm in any way, shape, or form a fan of Michael Flynn. Michael Flynn was the kind of officer that me as an NCO, I hated. These were the guys that you could interact with like 30 seconds and realize really quickly that they did not see you as a human being or an individual. You were their stepping stone to their next pay grade kind of thing. You run into these guys from time to time, some of these career officers, that like they're fucking psychopaths. They have to be psychopaths to get up that high kind of thing. Not all officers are like this, but some of them, yeah, yeah. And it's like these are the guys that they don't care about the people underneath of them, because the people underneath them, you're meant to get them their next service ribbon, their next award, their next command. That's what they care about, kind of thing. If you ever want to know what it's like to be a non-commissioned officer in the military, you are a two-way shit filter. You don't want your guys knowing what comes out of the mouths of a lot of the officers, because if that happens, well, you're going to end up with a fragged officer. At the same time, you don't want especially the junior officers, knowing what the enlisted think of them, because they'd be too terrified to make a decision on anything when they really learn what some of the guys think about them. It can be really tough at times. And I never worked under Michael Flynn, completely different branch, but what I've seen of him and in interviews and read up on his career and all, I know Michael Flynn really well. And I know that he is somebody that takes advantage of every situation and so on. I think he's an absolute scumbag. I don't believe for a moment he believes a lot of the shit he says about Trump. For him, it is a way to jump onto Trump's coattails and to advance his career after he got fired by the Obama administration. I think that is a pill he has never been able to swallow, and he's just never moved on. I think he's done stuff in the past to imply that he was related to QAnon, kind of. Like he was feeding people's delusions to get money out of them. Because again, I think he's a fucking grifter. I think a lot of these people, when it really comes down to why do they do certain things, it's to get money out of people. That's really what it comes down to. So we're not gonna watch this whole friggin' thing because I've managed to go like an hour now without actually getting more than 15 minutes into this.
And I'm probably missing one or two. But you get the idea. Basically, the judge is like, come on, man. It's all right here in the public. And so those got thrown out. I have a few remaining, some of my more, understandably, possibly incendiary remarks, but remarks that I stand by. First of all, that you're Nazi. Well, when you talk like one and you act like one and you do all that shit, well, I'm sorry, it's not a crime to call a duck a duck.
I can't imagine being Jim's lawyers. I cannot imagine. It's like, Jim, I really need you to shut the fuck up about your case. Like, please, please, please. I'm tired of being embarrassed in this court because you can't go 30 seconds without shoving your goddamn foot in your mouth. I'm kind of a like I'm a everyone I think knows this. You could sue a ham sandwich. You'll always be able to find that ambulance chaser that will take your case if you're willing to spend the money. But eventually you will get to a point where your own legal team is just like, you know what? I could get somebody else. I don't need to be wasting my life fighting a case that my own client is derailing constantly. I'm kind of amazed that Jim hasn't hit this point for this case where his lawyer is just like, or his lawyers are just like, we're done here, Jim, we're done. I think the one case that Jim lost with a default judgment, I legitimately think it was a situation where Jim didn't realize, he got his cases confused because he's so drunk and messed up all the time that he didn't realize that he had not told his own lawyer about it, which is why he lost the default judgment for not responding in time. Which, by the way, people on Twitter were warning him about, like, hey, you have to file this. Like, we're not seeing it in the dockets, because there's a lot of Jim haters that kind of religiously follow every time his lawyers file stuff, and like Jim just kept blowing him off until eventually he lost his case, simply because he just never acknowledged that there was a case after he got served.
Like a Nazi right now, motherfucker. He got mad because I said he wanted the second Holocaust. Well, he spends his time recapitulating the propaganda that caused the first Holocaust. So Jewish Bolshevism, for example, the idea that there's a conspiracy of Jews and communists to take over the world is literally what Hitler said. That is what the central myth that caused the Third Reich and it's just saying it out loud. You know, you got to look at the Jews because the Jews are like the Bolsheviks and like just straight up say the same stuff.
Again, I don't like Michael Flynn, but Michael Flynn has never come out and said shit like that. Because if he did, like, his entire ability to be able to grift money off of people would grind to a fucking halt. This is where, like, Jim's being so fucking stupid. Like, Michael Flynn's not coming out and directly saying that. It would cost him, Michael Flynn, money, so he's not going to do that. Whether he believes that or not is a different thing, but he hasn't come out and said that. And because he hasn't come out and said that, when Jim says he's come out and said that, that becomes an actionable tort. Especially when Michael Flynn can show this is costing me money, this is causing me issues, and this asshole's making money off of calling me a Nazi. So it's like, Jim is the perfect guy, other than the fact that I honestly believe he's kind of fucking broke. He's like the perfect guy to have to be slandering you because he can't shut his mouth up for more than 10 minutes.
I think that, to me, that seems pretty clear. Also, he's mad because I said he tortured prisoners, but okay, he just ran Gitmo and was part of Abu Ghraib. I don't know, maybe he didn't have the pliers or the electrical outlet, but sure seems pretty responsible for a lot of torture to me. So those are the things that are still outstanding.
Real quick, Michael Flynn did not run Abu Ghraib. The people that were running Abu Ghraib did prison time.
My lawyers, according to the statement that Heidi got from Genocide, which is fantastic, from my lawyers, that we are very confident that those 4 statements, in addition to the 10 for which I am free to say, at any point until he's going to fucking appeal. Anyway, lawfare is going to go.
Wow.
I guarantee you, Jim's lawyers have told him the 10 other things that the judge has said they're not going to look at. Don't fucking mention them again. Do not give Michael Flynn's lawyers more ammo to come after me so that I have to try to prove those 10 items along with the 4 items that I'm already trying to prove. Like, at least, again, not a lawyer, but at least that's my impression of things. Notice again how Hi-Fi is just sitting there, chain smoking, bored off his ass because he's not allowed to speak when Dear Leader is speaking.
Whatever.
He has to ask to
Right
be
now,
unmuted.
it is adjudicated that those 10 statements are prima facie showing that it's acceptable public discourse. So have at it. Have fun. I invented a game where you can combine some of those different things together into different sentences. It's like, what I really want to do is get a set of fridge magnets with like traitor, terrorist, run QAnon, and just be able to make different sentences with it every morning. Anyway, that is my update from the Sarasota County Court.
Thank you so much. And maybe Hi-Fi can pull up the lawyer statement because I think it's really important if you have it handy. In the meantime, I will say that Jim has a really small team behind him. So I'm very, very grateful. You all know who you are. And it was a member of the team who was like, let's get a statement from the lawyer. And that statement from the lawyer was really important because one thing I learned recently is that there are no shortage of these types of attorneys who are identified relatively young, given a certain type of grant, and then put into the pipeline of doing this type of lawfare work for these essentially criminals. And it doesn't matter.
So any lawyer who ever works in civil, if it's a case that Heidi doesn't agree with, it's part of an international conspiracy where these lawyers, what is it, their first year law? Like, they're asked, are you a Nazi or a Nazi supporter? Well, we're going to give you extra money. Like, this is so stupid. This is so, and again, a lawyer will sue anyone for you, whether there's merit of the case or not. Now, a decent lawyer will tell you whether or not you have merit. But at the end of the day, they got bills to pay. And ultimately, it's up to you to not waste your money. Or not, in Jim's case, not say stupid shit repeatedly that results in a civil tort.
If they win or not, because they are so well funded, the whole point is to try to silence critics. If that doesn't sound like, Soviet Russia or Nazi Germany, I don't know what is. And so we at Radicalized.
Soviet Russia and Nazi Germany were really known for their bullshit lawsuits. That's what they did. They didn't have death camps. The Gulag. And people didn't fear going to the Gulag under Stalin. What they feared was getting sued. Like, what the fuck are you talking about, woman?
Have always known what we're fighting. I marched with a sign in November of 2016 that said, I do not want a fascist America.
She marched. Heidi reminds me of, there's a Cumtown bit. I got to admit, when I got my hearing back, a friend of mine recommended like these animated Cumtown things. I didn't know what a Cumtown was. And there's a guy on Cumtown. I guess the podcast isn't on anymore. What the hell is his name? But he's from Maryland. He's from Baltimore area. Like, I think 2 of them are from Baltimore, so they could do the accent and stuff. They could play it up, and it's like, wow, that's weird. It's like I'm back home. But they have this bit where it's like Elmo is gentrifying Sesame Street, and there's a great line where like Elmo's kicking out the black dude, and he's like, hey, for those 3 days that we marched, we did a lot of good, but I'm going to need you to move. It's like, I'm a good person. That's what Heidi reminds me of, is that whole bit. If you look it up, I think it's pretty funny. It's like Cumtown Elmo, and you'll be able to find it.
Do not want a fascist America, and that is why we do the show. But I want to just give a shout out to all the people and all of our supporters who are actually making it possible for Jim to have a great legal team.
We don't want a fascist America, but we want to be able to strip Americans of their rights to say things and to protest and do any of that we personally disagree with. But that doesn't mean we're fascist. Like, we just want to strip Americans of their basic civil rights.
Fighting on his behalf in Florida. It's very important. And David Pepper taught
Cough
me
it up a
that
storm.
when you have a victory, even a partial victory, a small victory, whatever it is, celebrate it for a few minutes, an hour, and then get right back in the trenches. And I must say, last night I gave myself that few minutes, Jim.
This is the other thing I love. These three act like they're at war, like that they're dealing with the same shit that like me and my boys dealt with and all. And it's like I get so annoyed when people do that. And I'm one of those people that like I really don't like it when you have assholes that are like, if you weren't on the front line, boots on the ground, you weren't really in the military. I hate that. I really do. Because the only reason I'm alive, and I'm able to walk, I'm able to talk, the whole reason I'm able to fucking hear 20 years later after that miraculous surgery is because of all the support staff and stuff behind me. That said, it is so goddamn irritating when you've got these three boomers. I guarantee you they have never had to shit in a pit. I guarantee you they've never had to shit in an open sewer on the side of the road the whole time in front of your guys, hoping that they're providing coverage for you in case somebody tries to take a pot shot at you. Like, they've never had to deal with that. Like, so what are you talking about being in the trenches? Like these three, their lives don't change under Trump. It didn't change under Trump. The three of them were not affected at all. Similarly, when Biden took over, their lives didn't change at all. They pretend like that does because that's what makes them money. And it's the whole, we're in the trenches. We know what it's like. We are the information warriors. You sound like fucking Alex Jones.
Walked around the neighborhood listening to some punk rock. Literally my iPhone like a boombox, not even putting headphones on because I wanted everybody to hear Pennywise's Straight Ahead.
Oh, God, she has the worst taste in music. The worst fucking taste in music. It is the most middle of the road, just boomer, just boomer pop punk.
Good, and then of course, get right.
Also, it's really irritating when people are walking around and they're not wearing headphones, blasting music, Heidi. Like, you really shouldn't do that. That's really disturbing to people, especially out in California, where like saying hello and good morning to somebody is considered to be a social faux pas.
Thank you, everybody. Yes, high five.
Hey, high five gets to talk. It only took you 10 minutes of listening to them ramble.
Because my allergies are kicking my butt this evening, but
shut up.
Well, that too.
You sat there for 10 minutes. They finally unmute you, and the first thing you do is cough into your damn microphone.
From Jim's legal team, we are encouraged by the court's immediate dismissal of the bulk of Flynn's complaint and look forward to prevailing on the remaining few items as the case proceeds. This ruling sends a clear message that the right of the people to be openly critical of political figures will be protected by the courts and vindicates all voices bringing light to the darkness of our political reality. The next steps involve determined participation in discovery and compelling Flynn to appear for deposition and surrender evidence that will ultimately prove the legitimacy and protected nature of Jim's public remarks.
Jim's own shitty internet is doing the whole, you ever do that where you try to pause something just so that it's like a perfect screenshot to make somebody look like a jackass? Jim's own internet is doing that in real time. Let me back that up just a little bit.
Forward to prevailing on the remaining
Just watch Jim.
As the case proceeds. This ruling sends a clear message that the right of the people to be openly critical of political figures will be protected by the courts and vindicates all voices bringing light to the darkness of our political reality. The next steps involve determined participation in discovery and compelling Flynn to appear for deposition and surrender evidence that will ultimately prove the legitimacy and protected nature of Jim's public remarks. Craig A. Weisenhunt,
Esquire, bitch.
Jim Esquire is what lawyers. It's kind of like how whenever I sign an official document, my signature or my name ends with PE for professional engineer. Esquire is the same thing for lawyers. Same thing why you see a doctor with MD, somebody with a PhD, it's MD. A dentist has got different acronyms. It's not a big deal to have Esquire at the end. It just means that you have a law degree. I think either that or you have standing with the bar. Either way, it means you're a lawyer. By the way, I don't want to make it sound like I'm shitting on lawyers when I say like you can get a lawyer to sue anyone for anything. Lawyers do a vital public service, especially public defenders. I got a buddy of mine. We served together. He's a lawyer in Philadelphia, in Philadelphia, the city. and he's a public defender. I don't know how he does it. Like for the little amount of money that he gets, he is the only thing for some people between their lives being completely ruined and over. And I was like, yeah, but like, are they innocent? He goes, it doesn't matter, dude. He's like, it doesn't matter. They need to have a defense. He goes, because he's like, I'm dealing with a police department that they do all kinds of crazy shit just to railroad people. And he goes, and sometimes I know they're innocent, and the best I could do for them is a plea bargain. But if I could get them a plea bargain to just try to minimize the damage to their lives, and it's like, he does a job that I could never ever do, and I mean like not do because of the stress, because of the feeling of failure when you don't get the results you want. And I work on mega projects. Like I work on mega projects. I did a project in the Middle East that was something like $47 billion of the government's money was invested into this facility that I was doing about 80% of their automation work. Massive amounts of money and time. I spent like a year and a half in the Middle East doing this in this one particular country. Incredibly stressful job. I couldn't do my buddy's job as a public defender. Couldn't. He's my hero. He's legitimately my hero. And people all the time will shit on him for being a public defender because he makes no money, and people have this negative connotation about lawyers. So I don't want people thinking I'm just shitting on lawyers this entire video.
Tim, did you retweet the live stream?
Yeah,
You did? Did you?
Oh my
Oh,
God.
thank you.
if you didn't notice, we're in the live stream.
I just wanted to make
I love how
sure.
they go.
I didn't want to text it in case Hi-Fi.
Hi-Fi is constantly raising his hand and smoking, trying to get their attention and let him
Seriously,
speak.
though, that's some big news. And
I don't know if Hi-Fi controls his own microphone. I don't think he can. I think it's Heidi. Like, Heidi is allowed to make this, because it can't be Jim, because Jim will just pass out completely. Like, he'll start talking and not realizing his microphone's not on. So Heidi, who's probably the most sober out of the three, is the one that kind of runs the show. But like Hi-Fi is not allowed to control his own mic. And it's like, dude, you're in your 50s on a podcast. This is how little both of them respect you. Like, you need to, we're going to go ahead and mute you. Like, they do that to him all the fucking time. It's kind of crazy. I'm going to just fast forward and just stop at random, see what they're talking about.
It's a big weird story that you're trying to uncover. But in fact, the big story is we hate everything about a multicultural, tolerant America. What you really need to do is go after all those pedophiles in the deep state. And those all happen to be Democrats and people that we don't like. Also, by the way, Rush is cool and, like that. Yeah, so it was in fact a big narrative, but there is no QAnon really, right?
How is there no QAnon if Michael Flynn is the guy is QAnon?
These Q drops, but that alternate reality that was created by QAnon has been dispersed into all kinds of different places, right?
I'm so confused.
You don't have to go to 8chan to find QAnon anymore, right? It's in Congress. It's on your fucking television.
Yeah.
8chan's on my TV.
Half of Twitter is, or whatever the fuck you call it, is QAnon. It may or may not, be about WWG1, WGA or whatever. It may not talk about.
This is something I would love to be able to actually ask Jim in person, face to face about. Sorry, I'm trying to open up my pop bottle, and I don't have a bottle opener, so I have a key on my keychain that I'm hoping is not a key that I need, because I'm bending the hell out of it. I'm so annoyed that the airline lost my bags with my tools in it, because I do have a pop bottle opener. There we go. But one of the things I would ask Jim and any number of people that say shit like this, like Zitter or whatever the frick it's called, is taken over by neo-Nazis and so on. And it's like, if you really think that Zitter is being run by neo-Nazis for neo-Nazis to spread hate speech and all that shit, why are you still on it? Why are you still on it? There are message boards that are dedicated to white nationalism and all that crazy shit. I don't go on them. I would not go on them. And if I legitimately thought for a moment that Zitter, or YouTube for that matter, suddenly was an alt-right kind of white nationalist, da-da-da-da-da-da, I would stop using it overnight. Like, not even a freaking question. Just no, I'm not going to use it. But this is the kind of bullshit that these people say because their whole shtick is to try to scare people. And they're trying to scare people that are just like them. Their lives aren't where they want them to be. The kids aren't talking to them anymore. The grandkids don't want to hang out with them. Things are scary. Things don't add up the way they were. These kids these days, too many genders. There's just too many genders. And like the hippity hop music, it's all just scary. And then Jim's and other grifter like them are like, yeah, everything's scary. This is scary, that's scary, that's scary. Everything's scary. And in Jim's case, he goes, and Mike Flynn is scary. And who's standing up to Mike Flynn? It's me. And I'll fix all the scary. Give me money, 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 money. And it would have worked too. But the problem is Jim doesn't have a governor on his junk mouth, and he just keeps passing that limit to where it becomes an actionable tort.
But all the same themes, all the same enemies, all the same hatreds, all the same fantasies exist, whether you call it QAnon or not. And
it literally sounds like he's talking about himself.
Yes.
It literally.
I am very sad as you say this because I think about Ashley Babbitt, whose empathy and trauma were targeted. She believed she was going to save some children, and she died and was shot because she brought a weapon and was threatening. And then I think about people I know whose empathy.
I want to say this right now. Ashley Babbitt was a fucking moron. Like, we generally, I'll be real with you, the other enlisted branches tend to look down on the Air Force. There's a joke. You're in a bar. All four branches are there, and a crazy brawl has broken out. Guys are fighting each other. So the guy that lets out a blood-curdling scream picks up a guy and throws him into the guy that he's fighting. Well, that guy's in the Marine because they're nuts. The guy that's doing judo chops and hip flips, like hand-to-hand shit, that guy's in the Army. The guy that's all the way by the pool table who guzzles his beer, picks up a pool stick and just slams it in the back of the head of some random guy standing there just so he could steal his beer and drink that. He's in the Navy because they're all drunks. The guy that's on all fours sneaking under the tables who started the fight by grabbing the boob of a guy's girlfriend, he was in the Air Force. So she was an idiot. She was an absolute idiot. Absolute fucking moron. I will say this, however. It was amazing to me. Like, the big thing that was amazing to me, how ACAB, trending, hashtag ACAB, nonstop until January 6th. And then all of a sudden, we love our police. It's like, it's from the same people. It's like, wow, that's really interesting how that changed all of a sudden. It changed all of a sudden because it involved protests and whatnot involving a Democratic president. Because, again, we'll see this next election. I firmly believe there's going to be another January 6th. There's going to be. The question only is whether it's going to be Democrats or it's going to be Republicans that are losing their shit at the Capitol. Either way, it's going to be the same result. It's going to be hilarious. I don't want anyone to die. I want to be very clear. I don't want anyone to die. But I absolutely want another riot. I want the same thing. And it'll be hilarious. It'll be hilarious whether it's Trump being sworn in or if it's being Biden sworn in. It will be hilarious because I firmly admit I'm one of those assholes where it's like, I don't see the difference. And I know that pisses people off.
Trauma have been weaponized, and they are full-blown QAnon. Can't reach them. Can't have a conversation. They have been trained to believe in the in-or-out group, which is very important. Part of
in-or-out group and from these people. That is fucking hilarious. That is absolutely fucking hilarious. Because again, if I try to talk to them about like my perspective that war should be the very last thing that we ever do, and that, I don't know, maybe we shouldn't be pumping over $100 million a day in tax-funded money into the IDF so that the IDF and the Israeli government can conduct a brutal ethnic cleansing campaign in Gaza. Maybe that's not a good idea. They'll kick me out. All of a sudden, I'm anti-Semitic. It's like, how am I anti-Semitic? I spent a year and a half working in Hadera, Israel. Like, you think they would let me do that if I was anti-Semitic? I'm not anti-Semitic. I'm against the Netanyahu regime, and I'm against the settlements, and more importantly, I'm against the slaughter of Muslim and Christian civilians. Like, I'm against that. He's like, nope, you're out. You're out. You're not. You're an extremist, Smith. You're an extremist. You're out. It's just funny to hear her say in or out.
These are targeted operations for big groups of people. Today, somebody asked me, how many people do you think have been radicalized? And when we started the program, it was an estimated 30 million people. I feel like in what I'm seeing in my own world that, yes, there are some people who are quietly leaving MAGA, but I am seeing people who just a few months ago were not acting the way they're acting. So the escalation of the rhetoric, which Jim reports on every day, and the escalation of the violence that's being instigated, I think it's obviously having some real world impact.
30 million Americans were radicalized by Trump or whatever she think, because again, following these people, trying to figure out what they mean by the rhetoric that they use is almost impossible to pin down. So let's say there's 30 million radicalized, crazy, alt-right, MAGA, everything. How the frick did the Capitol not fall? 30 million? 30 million. So let's say it's 30 million. Let's say 10% of them, because they're radicalized. They're crazy. Let's say 10% of that number goes to the Capitol building. That's 1 million people storming the Capitol. We didn't have 1 million people there. We didn't have close to 1 million people there. We had fewer people at that stupid January 6th than show up for an inauguration. Again, this is kind of stupid rhetoric these people say. And the thing is, what they're feeding it to are these knuckleheads over here that think that these idiots aren't just making shit up off their ass, which they are, out of their ass, which they are.
As far as growing the numbers.
You bring up a good point, and it's about the targeted operations. And we see the operations, we see the fascist theater daily, and we don't call it out.
Oh, that's a good point.
So yeah, this right here, Mark Zuckerberg apologized because Josh Hawley yelled at him. What none of these stories bring up is that both of these things only exist because.
Oh, hi, thanks for checking in. I'm still a piece of garbage.
I know. I mean, that was good. That was solid.
That was solid. Yeah.
That's the annoying thing they'll do. They'll just completely derail whatever they're freaking talking about to play that little clip thing. I don't know what it's from. I guess it's their attempt to do a radio callback kind of thing. I'm not sure, but it's really annoying.
No, don't go crazy. Give him some room for food.
Well, here's
hey.
I don't know how anyone is able to follow this and what they're talking about. The way they talk over each other, and it's so frantic because they got to get stuff out before Jim just totally zones out on opioids and booze.
Josh Hawley was hired at Stanford by Peter Thiel for the Stanford Review. When Josh Hawley ran for the Attorney General of Missouri, Peter Thiel gave him $300,000. Josh Hawley has been sponsored by Peter Thiel for a decade, more, right? Now, Mark Zuckerberg, Meta, Facebook. Who was the first big investor into Facebook? Why, Peter Thiel, $500,000. Then along came Yuri Milner, the Russian Israeli. And then along came Sergey Grishin, right? But Mark Zuckerberg and Meta and Facebook only exist to cause these harms because Peter Thiel was there to drop his money into the bucket. So when you see these articles, Mark Zuckerberg has to apologize because Josh Hawley yelled. Just real.
Oh, hi, thanks for checking
Oh
in.
my God, it's annoying. Okay, I'm done. We're gonna just move on because they're gonna keep doing that, and I don't even know what they're trying to say.
But the clips that we isolate are just a great way for you guys just to get a quick glimpse of what we talked about.
And the media, it frustrates me the media focuses on those front groups. It doesn't focus on the fact that almost all these people are part of one coordinating organisation, and they run coordinated campaigns of disinformation.
I always love this. They'll bring people on other podcasts, and it's always the same thing. It's typically somebody that used to be heavy into QAnon, so they made a lot of money as a QAnon magnifier, booster kind of thing. Give me money. I'm part of QAnon. And we're going to take back our country. And then when January 6th happened, Trump losing the election, and then January 6th, they're ooh, the well's kind of running dry. So then they just reinvent themselves. Now, this guy, I'm not sure. And again, I am running this at like twice speed, so like I don't think he normally sounds like a chipmunk.
Recently have been exploiting mental health data to push their agendas.
You hear that,
Oh,
media?
Jim's
You know,
busting
hear
out the
that?
weed or the
I mean,
crack.
mental
I'm
health
not sure
data,
which.
Eric, speaking of Peter Thiel, right? You just got, Palantir just got the UK health information of like all of the people in the United Kingdom and $500 million.
Hi-Fi, can you remind people about Palantir's connection with Cambridge Analytica?
Yes. So Cambridge Analytica, one of the things that's
Briefly, we don't need like 45 more.
Prime example of how Jim does not respect or like hi-fi at all. Hey, Heidi's like, hey, can you explain this link? And then Jim's like, real quick, man. Like, I don't need your fucking bullshit. Like, hi-fi, if you ever see my video, this is how little Jim respects you.
Hey, let me do my thing, man. Let me do my thing.
I know.
Ready?
Yeah,
Here we go.
hey.
Cambridge Analytica was accused of stealing data from Facebook to use in its Oceans profile to target people for election interference. An engineer from Palantir who testifies that he was told by his managers to help Cambridge Analytica scrape data from Facebook for this project. So Peter Thiel founded and funded Palantir, helped Robert Mercer funded and founded Cambridge Analytica to steal data from Peter Thiel funded and founded Facebook. That should be pretty open to people to understand how that works. And now, out of nowhere, as Jim was just saying, Palantir has a $480 million contract for the federated data of everyone in the UK. This should end well.
I almost would
You're
want to
right.
ask, like, what do you think's going to happen? It's record keeping for the National Health Service. Like, this is also one of those things that, like, a lot of Americans that have never worked overseas or lived overseas, I guarantee you these three think that, like, England's National Health Service is the greatest thing since sliced bread. They've never had to deal with it. They've never have. Because it's like, you go to a National Health Service, like, every time I've ever worked in the UK, and I've had like a medical issue I've had to take care of. You feel like you're going into a doctor's office in like 1986. Like everything is decrepit. And like one of the things that they're struggling with is they're having to update their record keeping and everything. It's like awful. You're gonna have to use companies that collect data, store it, and make it searchable. You're gonna have to use a company that does that. And it's a limited number of companies that could do this. It doesn't mean that there's a massive global conspiracy. And again, it's like, what are they going to do with the medical records? What do you think they're going to do? They're going to affect the election for the Tories based on knowing what people have syphilis or whatever in which towns in England?
Why do people not understand?
Oh, hi. Thanks for checking in.
I swear to God, every time that happens, it annoys me even more.
Three.
I was waiting for it. I knew it was coming.
I thought he might actually skip that one. So do we have one more clip from Brent? And the movie that we
I'm
talked to
done.
Brent about,
I can't listen to this anymore. Even on like twice speed. You can imagine how slow and drawn out this is if you try to watch it. This is what boomers are exposing themselves to on like a daily basis. It's like no wonder you're like psycho and you believe everything they say. But I'm going to let you go. I hope you're all doing well. Take care of each other. Ciao.